point out that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I wonder how gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 540th edition of Energy Week with George Harvey and Tom Fennell.
Sounds like a lot of editions.
It does, doesn't it? It's more than I can count. So how do I know there's 540? I have a computer count it.
They usually count pretty well.
They usually do. Sometimes they don't. Okay, this show is made up of news items that have been posted on my blog, geoharvey.com, which is what's called a news aggregation blog, in which the news relating to energy and climate change is put up on a daily basis. It's been put up every day since the 2nd of June, 2012, so it's been a while.
A while, yeah.
Yeah, and the shows have been going on since November of 2013, which is why there's so many of them. They go up approximately weekly. There's been a few weeks where the studio's been closed, and we've had a few weeks when we had more than one show because we had a special. So, the show goes to my blog, geoharvey.com, but from that, where there are usually about 15 news items every day, we pick 3 every day, usually 3, it might be 2 or 4. But
it certainly averages out to 3, but
it
usually
sure does, yeah.
3.
Yeah, and those go to a blog that is posted so that people can get to it, and it also is taken from there and put into a file, both of which appear lower on a computer screen, going down, so people can go down and click on them to download the file or open the site.
Well, we put out as a summary or a synopsis. I mean,
yeah, that's right.
Some of these articles are well written and in depth.
Yeah, and people can click
on the time. Look them up.
Yeah,
we got the links. You
can click on the links and read the articles. I think there might be a few people who actually do that. I doubt very much that it's the majority of people, but there are a few.
I'm sure there are a few that do it because some of these articles are really well done.
They're worth doing. So we're going to start with an article from CNN, and I'm going to put up the picture there that is associated with that. It's a picture of the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, and I bet, Tom, you have a title for the article.
Biden administration cancels years-long attempt to drill in the Alaska National Wildlife Refuge.
Right. The Biden administration said it will cancel 7 Trump-era gas and oil leases in the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, which is what the picture is, and protect more than 13 million acres in federal National Petroleum Reserve in Alaska, stymieing a years-long attempt to drill in the area. And
stymieing, that word comes from golf.
Does it? I didn't know that.
Yeah, when your opponent's ball is in the way of you wanting to do what you want with your ball, that's called a stymie.
Is it?
Yeah.
Well, how about that? Yeah. Well, I learned something.
It's made it into our national vocabulary now.
I guess it is. So do you have more on that, or should we go ahead?
I think you can't dance. Let's move on.
Okay. The next picture we have is a picture of Disney World, which is about as different from the picture we just looked at as I can imagine a picture being.
Yeah, Disney World is a world of fantasy.
Yeah, and it doesn't have snow, usually.
Not very frequently.
Okay, this article is from CNN.
It is that. and it says, and I quote, "Climate change is hurting Six Flags, SeaWorld, and Disney World." And I might add others as well.
Yeah, SeaWorld, for those, I mean, Six Flags, for those who don't know, is a theme park like Disney World and so forth. And the synopsis says, when an intense rain and flooding stranded more than 70,000 people at Burning Man in the Nevada desert, it was just the latest. That's a lot of people. And they were stuck there for a couple of days, couldn't get out. It was just the latest example of how extreme weather made worse by climate change has impacted major North American attractions this summer. And, you know, these different theme parks have all been hit by, I think most of them by flooding. This year.
It's certainly hurting them economically.
It's hurting them economically, and they are such important employers that it is bad for the region that they're in. You know, and the region's been hurt by flooding. So that just makes it a double whammy, really, for people living in that area, because people who might have jobs are unable to earn money, and it just complicates the flood. So I guess that's for that. Do you have more on that, Tom?
Oh, we pretty well covered it.
Okay.
Let's move on.
Our next picture
looks like a beach to me.
That's what it is. The picture says sea, S-E-A, not S-E-E, but it could work for S-E-E too. You know, see it.
It comes to us from CNN.
That's right.
And I'll give you the title.
Please do.
The world just experienced the hottest summer on record by a significant margin.
Yeah. June to August was the warmest such period since records began in 1940. According to data from the European Union's Copernicus Climate Change Service. Also, according to the Copernicus data, August of 2023 was the warmest August on record since the records began in 1940. And it's been a...
So these people are saying that this is a myth, that global warming isn't happening. They're either lying or very, very badly misinformed.
Yeah. Well, there are people who have reasons for being in denial. Let me put it that way.
Stranded assets.
Yeah. Or somebody is paying them to be in denial.
Yeah.
Something like that. And unfortunately, they have an effect on the rest of us. There was a study that was done, I think in 2019, and whoever was doing the study went out and looked into the understanding of the climate by all of the scientists who had published in certain publications. And they found, of whom there were over 11,000, and they found that every single one of them believed that human-caused climate change was happening. And I have heard people say that they believe that it was not, but they're never able to provide any evidence that it's not.
I think they're paid to say it's not.
Yeah, it might be. Okay, we are up to Friday, September 8th, and we have pictures of wind turbines.
That's what it looks like to me. They look like turbines, don't they?
They look like wind turbines. And I'll bet that they turn like wind turbines. And
if you look closely, there's a bunch of them in that picture.
Yeah, there's 3 that are pretty easy to figure out. There might be more that I just don't see, but I do see 3. Okay,
this was from Clean Technica.
That's right, it is.
It says 20,000 communities demand local wind turbines.
Yeah.
20,000 communities.
20,000 communities. The arguments against wind power are running out of steam as costs drop and ratepayers chase after savings. A ratepayer-driven pro-wind revolution is brewing in the United Kingdom, and it could head to the U.S. soon. Octopus Energy is behind a ratepayer-driven wind revolution. And Octopus is giving people reasons to be in favor of wind power, and some of them have to do with lower electricity rates. And electricity rates have been problematical, and there has been almost nothing in the way of wind power additions in the United Kingdom over the last, I don't know, 6 or 8 years. And the electricity...
There has been in the North Sea, but not on land.
Not on land. They've just not been behind that on land. And so
But
that's...
for what it's worth, I'll tell you about Octopus.
Yeah?
Octopus Group is a financial services and energy firm which manages more than 9.2 billion Great Britain pounds of funds worldwide.
Okay.
So they're consultants, but they're a big one.
Yeah, they are. They are big. And they have, as you were saying, they manage funds. So they have a real interest in some, they have a very close interest in some of these wind farms.
Absolutely.
So our next picture is a microburst. That's
what it looks like to me.
Have you ever seen a microburst?
I probably have, but I can't say that I remember it.
Okay.
And for what it's worth, a microburst is a localized column of sinking air or a downdraft within a thunderstorm.
Right. And they can generate winds that are just incredibly powerful, 150 miles an hour. So those are like a F5 hurricane. And they're not tornadoes. If you see the damage that's done on the ground, it's pretty easy to see that it's a microburst, not a tornado, because
tornado is kind of a spinning thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I had a friend when I was a teenager. A tornado came down in woods, and it came down about 50 feet from his house.
Wow!
And it had a tiny column. The column couldn't have been more than 20 feet across where it hit the ground. But it came down into the woods, and it hit a bunch of trees and just wrapped them around each other. It was very, very weird. Anyway, this is a picture of a microburst, and we have the article is from Clean Technica, and you, Tom, have a title.
Better believe it. The climate crisis is wreaking havoc on the insurance industry.
Yeah.
It's a surprise to me.
It's not at all a surprise to me. I've been keeping track of climate change in the insurance industry, and this is what's been happening. Senators Elizabeth Warren and Chris Van Hollen, who is from Maryland, and Sheldon Whitehouse from Rhode Island, wrote to Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen and the Federal Insurance Office Director Stephen Zeitz, pointing out that insurance companies have reduced coverage in disaster-prone areas. Well,
why is that so surprising?
Yeah, if you were the head of an insurance company and you knew that you'd have to pay out every time there was a disaster, wouldn't you want to stop covering houses that are likely to be in disasters?
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. And
I lived on a river in Wardsboro.
Yeah.
And one year the river flooded.
Yes.
And it took off my back porch.
Oh.
And I had insurance to cover it.
Yeah.
And I applied to the insurance company. And they said, you got the wrong kind of insurance. It doesn't cover your kind of damage.
Oh, man.
So I wrote, this was cool because I wrote this to Senator Leahy.
Yeah.
And he fixed it for me.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, he was a pretty good person for helping out Vermonters. Okay. I wanted to mention that one of the things that I did, this is probably 7 or 8 years ago, I started to study the changes in insurance premiums on a national basis.
Oh, wow.
And what I found was in the period from 19 1978 to 2015, if you accounted for an increase in population, which meant that you had more structures to insure because there were more people living in them, inflation is obviously a big thing. You account for the increase of the price of land relative to the price of the dollar and so forth, different things. I came to the conclusion that the insurance premiums in this country should have gone up by a factor of 5.5. And then when I looked at what actually happened, I found that they didn't go up by a factor of 5.5. They went up by a factor of 47.
Wow.
And since then,
What's wrong with this picture?
yeah, it's just gone on. It has not slowed down. And so the insurance premiums that people are paying are high. And then you have the problem of, the insurance companies saying, I don't want to do business where a hurricane is going to come. I don't want to insure a mansion that's on a beach in Florida. Are you kidding me? So, that's the way they work. I can't blame them. I wouldn't want to insure a house on a beach in Florida either.
There's certainly some logic there, but it kind of runs topsy-turvy to the way we believe.
It doesn't help. One of the things obviously is that it would probably be a good idea for people not to buy houses or build houses that are expensive structures in 100-year flood zones,
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. Anyway, we're going to go on to the next one, whether you like it or not. How about that, Tom?
Well, it'd be great if I get this foolish thing to scroll.
Oh, we have an item from the BBC, and we have the first of several pictures going up that are pictures of her.
I can't get it to scroll, damn it.
Ah.
Hold on a second.
I will hold on a second.
Let me sit up.
You try to scroll it, and I will just continue talking. We have several pictures of Hurricane Lee.
Rolling now.
Ah, good. Okay.
One scroll.
This is the first article about Hurricane Lee, and it's from the BBC. Now, do you want to read the title, or should I? I know how to.
This is Hurricane Lee, right?
Yeah, it's Hurricane Lee.
Yeah, nice picture of Hurricane Lee.
Yeah, the first of 3, and there are 4 pictures in this show of hurricanes.
I was going to say, we're going to touch base on this one.
Oh, we're going to talk about Hurricane Lee again.
You can see Cuba, you can see Puerto Rico, and there's 2 storms right out to sea.
Yeah, and the one that's closest to Puerto Rico is Hurricane Lee.
Absolutely.
And what do you got for a title?
The BBC, and it says, and I quote, Hurricane Lee becomes the first Category 5 storm of the Atlantic season.
Yeah. Hurricane Lee has powered up to a Category 5 storm, packing winds speeds of up to 160 miles per hour. As it churns through the Caribbean, it could cause dangerous conditions in the U.S. East Coast on Sunday, according to information from the U.S. National Hurricane Center.
That's this coming Sunday, isn't it?
What?
That's this coming Sunday?
No, that's last Sunday.
Sunday, so it didn't happen.
It didn't hit the United States, but it has caused trouble. It has caused trouble on the U.S. East Coast.
Well, we're going to talk about it again.
We are indeed. And so I'm going to leave off on that. One thing about this is it increased in power
rapidly.
It was a Category 1 one day, and it was a Category 5 the next.
We're going to talk about exactly that.
Yes, we are. So let's move on and see what we can do here. Oh, we have a picture of wind power.
Looks like that to me.
Yep, and this is from Politico.eu.
And it says, and I quote, COP28, a chance to course correct on a global clean energy transition.
Right.
What does that all mean?
Well, you know what COP28 is. It's a conference of parties, which is it's the 28th one of these things where countries get together and discuss what to do about climate change. Let me read this. Leaders of COP28 write that the world is not on track to meeting the 1.5 degree C goal of the Paris Agreement, and the global clean energy transition is dangerously off course.
That's not good news.
No, it's not good news, but there is hope. We can still get back on track by taking urgent action now. Now,
well, that's true, but are we going to take that urgent action?
it's a very good question. And I don't have a lot of hope that at some point we're going to have to take urgent action.
But I hope we do it in time.
I hope we do it in time. Okay, let's keep going because we've got
another picture of a hurricane.
It's another picture of Hurricane Lee.
Yeah.
This is a more obvious picture. And this is from CNN. What do you have for a title?
Lee adds to a growing trend of intense hurricanes powered by warmer oceans.
Yeah.
Surprise, surprise.
Surprise, surprise. Hurricane Lee rapidly intensified at a historic pace into a Category 5 storm Thursday night, adding to a spate of extremely intense hurricanes this year and in recent decades. Experts say the strength and rapid growth of storms are symptoms of the climate crisis. And of course,
you got to say that again.
Experts say the strength and rapid growth of storms are symptoms of the climate crisis. What's happening here is that most of the energy in global warming is not warming the air. It's warming the sea, the ocean.
Yep.
And that warmer ocean, which in some cases has just been incredibly warm, 101 degrees Fahrenheit for ocean off the Florida Keys is an example.
That's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. I mean, what do you do when you get into 101 degree water? You break out into a sweat. What's that for? The thing that's happening here is that the hurricanes are powered by warm water.
Yep.
They have more moisture in them in warm water, but more to the point, they have more energy in them because of the warm water. And that just means that we may not have any more hurricanes, but the hurricanes that we have are very often very strong. And Hurricane Lee fortunately turned north and very rapidly became a Category 3 storm and continued to diminish in strength as it went on north. But it's just the first of these storms for this year. Okay, should we go on?
Because it's going to happen more frequently.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So are you set to look at a new Ford?
I think so, yes. That is a Ford Mustang Mach-E.
Yeah, and it's Mach-E Rally, which means that it's got some special abilities in terms of handling.
Yeah, some goodies attached.
That's correct, and this is from Clean Technica.
Looks like it's got a grill, but it's not.
It's not a grill, no. Not at all. What do you...
Ford takes the Mustang off-road with upcoming Mach-E. I'll say it again. Ford takes the Mustang off-road with upcoming Mach-E rally car.
Yeah. Well, look at the Ford Mustang Mach-E Rally. I'm having trouble because you're having trouble. So this is a
contagious, isn't it?
Yeah, it's contagious. You can see that it's not the standard crossover that many other auto manufacturers are offering. This EV takes the freedom and the fun of Mustang onto dirt roads, showcasing a different direction for electric vehicles. So
It doesn't tell us much about that.
No, it doesn't. But, you know, the article has more to say than what I just read.
Yep.
But it tells us that Ford is doing things. Ford is interested in electric cars, and that's just the way it appears to be. We are up to Sunday.
Oh, it's the future of automobiles, let's face it.
Yeah. We're up to Sunday, September 10th. And
it looks like a picture of, what is that, a big blue marble?
I think it's a marble. I used to have a marble that looked just like that. It wasn't that big, though.
Well, it's a picture of the Earth, and it comes from Oxfam America.
That's what it says.
And it says, and I quote, underwhelming G20 skates over the big issues of poverty, inequality, and climate.
That's not hopeful.
No.
The G20 has failed to meet the huge challenges our world faces, according to Oxfam. The G20 continue to stumble from taking the bold actions necessary to tackle poverty, inequality, and climate issues at an uninspiring summit in India this weekend. Obviously,
that's what he's supposed to be doing.
Oxfam is not happy.
No.
A lot of other people are not happy either. So that's what we have to do. Tom, believe it or not, our next story has a picture of Hurricane Lee.
It certainly looks like that to me.
Yeah.
We need enough pictures of Lee for us to recognize it.
Yeah, but you know, it changes every hour or two, so. This is from ABC News, and yes, that means American Broadcast Company, not Australian.
Yes, this is American ABC, not Australian ABC.
When we talk a lot about things that are on ABC, which is Australian Broadcast Company, but when they come from the American Broadcast Company, it's ABC News, not ABC.
Ah, okay.
So what do you have for title?
Hurricane Lee becomes a rare storm, rapidly intensifying from Category 1 to Category 5 in 24 hours.
Yes, during
That's
That's what?
That's the news.
That's the news. During the satellite era, very few hurricanes have intensified by 85 miles per hour or more in 24 hours. Hurricane Lee was a Category 1 hurricane with a maximum speed of 80 miles an hour on Thursday. 24 hours later, it was a Category 5 storm with hurricane with 165 mile per hour winds. It went from 80 miles per hour, which is bad enough, to 165, which will just knock down.
That's double.
More than double. And more than double means the power of that is going to be, the power is going to go up by the square.
Yes, so it's going to be 4 times.
It's going to be 4 times as powerful. It's just unbelievable what these things will do. So, and that's just in 24 hours. One of the things to bear in mind about this is that very rapid change in power is something that is doubly scary, because it means that if you're living in a place that might be on the path of the hurricane, it might be a Category 1 storm when you go to bed. And when you get up the next day, you might realize, okay, my house can withstand a Category 1 storm, but this isn't Category 1 and it's going to get stronger. There are places in this country where it's not easy to evacuate. For example, if you're at Key West, Florida, and you want to evacuate, what do?
Get a rowboat.
Well, I was going to say it might be easiest if you happen to own a submarine or something, you know. But getting to land, getting to the mainland means a long drive on an interstate highway that's only 2 lanes wide. And, you know, it's 1 lane in one direction and 1 lane in the other. And it just goes on and on and on with nothing but the sea around you. So this is a really difficult thing. There are other places that are the same. They're not going to get hit by a F5 hurricane probably, but Provincetown, Massachusetts is like that. Getting from Provincetown to Boston is a long drive. So, which is why there's a ferry there are ferries between Provincetown and Boston. Okay, should we go on?
Yes, yes.
Okay, we've got a picture here that is labeled Rural America.
Looks kind of rural to me, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does look that way, doesn't it? You know, and it's one of these, how they can make a city look like that, I don't know. But it says Rural America. And so we're going to hope that it tells the truth, right?
We can hope that. It comes from Technica.
That's right.
And it says, and I quote, how frontline communities can take advantage of the Inflation Reduction Act, which is Biden's best foot forward,
Yeah.
to advance local priorities.
Right.
That's interesting.
The Inflation Reduction Act has a J40 provision that directs 40% of the overall benefits and investments to disadvantaged communities, defined based on indicators from the Climate and Economic Justice Screening Tool or by a common condition. And you know, I wish that could say more, but basically what this is saying is the Inflation Reduction Act is associated with a huge amount of money, and a lot of that money is supposed to be going into communities in need of money.
Disadvantaged communities.
Yeah, I realize it's almost mind-boggling that we would be sending money to communities that need money. But that's what the Inflation Reduction Act is apparently doing.
Well, usually we send money to communities that don't need it.
Yeah.
And it winds up in somebody's pockets.
Yeah, well, you know, that's what it's for. Okay, we're up to Monday, September 11th.
Yeah, we are.
And we have a picture here of smog.
It looks pretty foggy to me, or smoggy.
This particular picture, I happen to know because I went out and found it, came from China.
Uh-huh.
And, okay, this is from the BBC.
Could cleaner air reduce the risk of suicide?
Yeah.
Now, that's an interesting thing.
Yeah, a new frontier of potentially preventative research on suicide is rising that might at first seem unrelated. Improving air quality. Over the past few years, various studies have identified associations between raised levels of air pollution and increased suicide risk. What should we make of this?
This is interesting. They use the word preventative, and there's no such word.
Is there no such word?
Huh? It's preventive.
Okay.
You can't preventate something.
Whoa, that's a very good point, Tom. I should have picked that out.
Well, it's a common mistake.
I guess it is. But you know, when you have common mistakes with words, they get into the dictionary.
They tend to, don't
they do. They do. I have a bunch of pet peeves among words. You know, when I'm doing my blog,
yeah.
if an author has put the word new into a title, I usually almost always take it out. This is news. Why do you have to call it new? If the author says that they're going to slash something, slash the loss associated with something, for example, I change that to reduce.
Makes sense.
And the thing about it is, the word slash is used so much that it is a hackneyed expression, you know? So I just...
Preventative is one of those words.
What's that?
Preventative is one of those words.
Preventative was one of those words. Yeah, I should remember that. Okay, our next item, we have pictures of a wind turbine, and actually it's more than one wind turbine.
Yeah, there's a bunch of wind turbines.
Kind of nice picture, I think. This is from Renews.
Intercom reaches 60 gigawatts of wind milestone.
Yeah.
I'll say that again. Intercom reaches a 60 gigawatt wind milestone.
Right. Enercon has announced that it has reached 60 gigawatts of onshore wind capacity installed worldwide. More than 32,000 wind turbines have been planned, produced, and commissioned in 50 countries since the company's foundation in 1984. This capacity is about what would be in 60 power plants. And I'm gonna differ with this statement that this capacity is about what would be in 60 conventional power plants. If you take a nuclear power plant, for example, it has a capacity factor of worldwide, it would be probably around 85%. And that means that it would produce about 85% of the of the nameplate capacity. My nose is just itching. I hope people will forgive me that. Wind turbines.
Doesn't that mean something like you could have a fight or something?
I don't know. The wind turbines have a capacity factor of might be 35, 40, sometimes as high as 50% or even higher. But what that means
is where they are.
Yeah, it depends. What that means is that a wind turbine produces about 30 to 40% normally of what a nuclear plant with the same capacity does. The wind doesn't always blow. So this is not, I would argue, the equal to 60 conventional power plants. I would say it's equal to perhaps 35 or 40.
But you don't need fuel.
You don't need fuel, and the fact is, believe it or not, when you look at wind power and nuclear power or coal or whatever, wind power occupies more land, the turbines, but they don't use as much land because these other things need fuel, and the fuel requires land. So,
well, you can build underneath a turbine very easily.
Oh, you can farm, you can have cattle, you can raise
almost anything.
Almost anything under wind turbines. Okay, our next picture is a picture of Brooklyn.
It looks like that to me. That, my friends, is the Brooklyn Bridge.
No, it isn't.
No?
No.
Looks like it to me.
Well, it's the Manhattan Bridge.
It's the Manhattan Bridge, huh?
Yeah, it is. Look at all those little X's in that thing. Do you see what I'm talking about?
Yeah, each one of those things has a signature, and I didn't look it up.
Ah, okay.
So that's the Manhattan Bridge.
That is the Manhattan Bridge.
From Brooklyn.
Yeah. And, you know, the other one that you get, I guess, is the Williamsburg Bridge from Queens or Brooklyn?
It goes from Brooklyn.
It goes from
Williamsburg, Brooklyn.
Yeah, I thought it did. But, you know, that I have driven across the Williamsburg Bridge. I've never driven across the Manhattan Bridge. I've gone across the Brooklyn Bridge many times.
Yeah.
Okay, this is from Clean Technica, and you have a title.
I do. How Biden is bringing more environmental and climate justice to the U.S.
Yeah. This past year, the EPA invested $3 billion from the Inflation Reduction Act in new environmental and climate justice grant program to accelerate environmental justice programs, address pollution, and support a more equitable future for the communities. Of course, we were just talking about this same thing a couple of minutes ago. This is something that has been in the news quite a lot. You know, if you do what I do and you're gathering news relating.
You're gathering from many sources.
Yeah.
A lot of them are saying the same thing.
This Inflation Reduction Act is just something that shows up over and over and over and over again. It's very big. It involves huge amounts of money. It is very influential. It is distributing its funding to actually primarily the states that have benefited from the Inflation Reduction Act the most are states that voted for Donald Trump in the last election.
How interesting.
Isn't it? But I think the reason for that is because those states had to catch up. And so they got more money to catch up. Okay, we're up to Tuesday, September 12th. And we have
it looks like that to me.
We have a picture
of like a farm.
It's a farm. You see the sheep down at the bottom?
Oh, yeah. I didn't see them. Yeah, there they are.
And they've got a really big area to graze in, and what they're going to do in that area is they can wander around, relax, stay in the shade if they want to.
Yeah.
There's a lot of shade. So this is from Renew Economy, which, by the way, is a giveaway that it's coming from Australia. So what do you see? What do you have as a title?
Seismic shift. Energy crisis helped wind and solar stretch cost advantage over fossil fuels.
Yeah, this has been...
Well, that's not news. I mean, that's going to become more and more important.
Yeah, this has been going on for a couple of years now, and it's just one more study that gave it as actually the cost difference is getting bigger. In 2010, the cost of a solar PV was 8 times as high as the cheapest source of fossil fuels, with a levelized cost of energy at 44.5 cents per kilowatt hour. An IRENA report, IRENA is the International Renewable Energy Agency, which is a UN agency, says that the levelized cost of energy from photovoltaics fell to 4.9 cents per kilowatt hour. That is falling big change, from 44.5 to 4.9. In 2022, I'm going to put that picture up. I don't think I had it up before. Making it 29% cheaper than the cheapest fossil fuel option. So if you're going to build a power plant that uses fossil fuels, which these days that basically means in most countries you're building natural gas. In China it might mean coal. In India it might mean coal. But if you're going to build a fossil fuel gas plant, you have to explain to stockholders or whoever why the energy is going to cost 35% more than what it would cost if you put up solar power, wind power, and batteries.
That differential is going to continue to increase.
It's going to continue to increase. It's going to become gradually harder and harder for organizations to explain why they're building fossil fuel plants or nuclear plants. I mean, nuclear plants.
As I'm fond of saying on his show, in the future they're going to talk about, they used to pay for fuel.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Okay, we have an item from Clean Technica here, and a
this
map.
is an interesting one.
Yeah, this is an interesting story, and a map of where this electric line is going to go. So,
for those who want to look at it, in the lower right quarter is Australia.
Yep.
And the upper left quarter, Singapore. That's
right.
That's a long distance.
That's a long distance. That's right. And they're talking about putting an electric line in on the ocean floor and moving ahead with that. So, what do you have for a title?
Sun Cable plan to bring solar power to Singapore is back on.
Right. Sun Cable, formerly known as PowerLink, is an ambitious idea that involves sending solar power via undersea cable. This is a cable 4,200 kilometers long. That is
2,600 miles.
2,610 miles from Darwin, Australia to Singapore along that route. Details in approvals and disagreements held the project up. Now it's underway again. The details in that were details, a lot of it had to do with getting permissions to go ahead with this project from the government of Indonesia. I mean, it's going in Indonesian water. They have to approve it, or it's not going to go in. So it was delayed.
Very simple. You pay off the right people.
Yeah. And in this particular case, there were 2 billionaires in Australia who were disagreeing about how this should be done.
Uh-huh.
And one of them wanted to put in an electric line, that went direct to Singapore. The other one wanted to put in a system that would, as I understand it, they wanted to do making hydrogen and shipping the hydrogen. And so they disagreed, and nobody was really happy. And with the differences in opinion, things were slowed down. So now it's underway again. Now, our next...
It makes a certain amount of sense.
It does.
But it's pushing the limit of technology.
Yeah, but you know, everything, many of the good things we do push the limit of technology.
Yep.
Our next item, we have our fourth picture of a hurricane, and this is an old picture. It's not from this year, so it's not Hurricane Lee. But this story is from CNN.
It does look like a hurricane, though.
Sure does.
Number of billion-dollar weather disasters in the U.S. blows through an annual record with 4 months left in the year.
Yeah.
I'll say that again. The number of billion-dollar weather disasters in the U.S. is blowing through the annual record with 4 months left in the year. Wow.
Yeah. And we have like 2 months left in the hurricane season, and we have already hit the record. With 4 months left in the year, the United States has had 23 disasters that each cost at least $1 billion. This is according to data from NOAA.
That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money, surpassing the previous record of 23 events in 2020. Together, 2023's disasters have gone through $57.6 billion in damages. Now, one thing that occurs to me here is that the damages that we're seeing this year, some of them, actually what I should say is some of them would not have necessarily been on the list in the past because we've had inflation. So it's easier to do $1 billion worth of damage when $1 is not worth as much.
I'll buy that.
But nevertheless, it's not an inflation that has been as bad as it had been in the past. It's nowhere near what it was in the past now. But as bad as it was in the past, we have a lot ahead of us, and we're probably going to have more disasters. The worst.
Still, I was just going to say, there's still a lot of disasters happening.
Yeah. Okay, we're up to Wednesday, September 13th, and we have a picture of a solar array, and this story is, it's from Clean Technica, and it talks about the EU. That particular solar array, if you look at the caption, you'll see that it's in Arizona. But
so we got a whole bunch of PVs, and then we got those white things are all storage units. They're batteries.
I think there's both. There's batteries and something else. I think there's inverters.
Probably are.
Yeah. So what do you have for a title?
Solar Power Europe predicts the EU will reach its renewable energy goal 3 years early.
Yeah, this is kind of impressive when you consider that the goal is for 7 years away. The 2023 annual report of from Solar Power Europe comes to a startling conclusion. It says the EU will reach the renewable energy goal it set for 2030 3 years early. The report is 148 pages long, and this article in Clean Technica provides a summary for it. So,
well, to misquote Bill Clinton, it's the economics, stupid.
It seems to me that Bill Clinton and Hillary might have made that statement famous, but it seems to me that it didn't originate with them. Oh, who was that guy that it originated with? Oh, what is it? James Carville.
Oh.
I think he was the one who actually had that, started saying that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
This next story that we're coming to is one that I would just call weird.
An interesting picture.
It is, and it's a weird story, and I wish we could see things. This is weird because it's polite. It's weird because it's to a point. It isn't destructive. This is a protest. That picture is a picture of a protest.
Well, two pictures of the protesters, the two people who are protesting are in the front of that picture.
Yeah, with the T-shirts that say "Act Now" on them. This is from CNN, by the way.
Renowned conductor allows climate activists to address the crowd at a Swiss music festival.
Right.
And that's what's happening in that picture. There they are right in the front.
That's right. They were having a protest, and let me read the synopsis. A famed Russian conductor, and I forget his name and it's not written down here, allowed climate protesters who disrupted a performance at a classic music festival in Switzerland to address the crowd. Two protesters from Renovate Switzerland were pushing the Swiss government to declare a climate crisis. And I find it hard to see the conductor in that. I think he may be the man who has got a somewhat bowed head, who appears above the young man with the white T-shirt. But nevertheless, what happened here apparently, as I read this article, I thought what it seemed to say was that the protesters had actually made a deal with the conductor in advance of the concert, so that they wouldn't have a messy protest. They'd have a polite protest, which would only go on for a couple of minutes. And the conductor finished one movement of a symphony or whatever it was, and the protesters got up on stage, and the conductor said he wanted everybody in the audience to listen politely as these two young people gave their address about what they hoped the Swiss government would do. And there were a few people who were obviously disappointed by this, and I think a couple of people whistled or something like that, indicating disapproval. But that's what happened. And then as soon as they were done, the concert continued. So it was in its own way, I think it was very powerful.
It was, yeah. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah. Okay, should we go on, Tom?
Can't dance.
We have one more picture, one more story. This particular picture.
Would you believe that there's a whole bunch of turbines in it?
Sitting out in the sea. Why don't they sink, Tom?
Well, in that particular case, I think they're anchored to the ocean floor.
They are. That picture
looks like they might have a boat to sit on.
Some of them, yeah, they have weird floating things. They have different kinds of floating things. This particular picture is from the Drax Group, and the Drax Group is also the source of the story. So, what do you got?
Gone with the wind. Fossil fuel loses ground in the UK's energy mix.
Yeah. New analysis from the Imperial College London for Drax Electric Insights has found that for the first time ever, the installed wind capacity has surpassed the capacity of natural gas, reaching 27.9 gigawatts in June compared to 27.7 gigawatts installed capacity for the gas generating. Now,
so that's the capacity, not the actual
output. Yeah, and 27.7 gigawatts of natural gas will produce more output than 27.9 gigawatts of wind, for the simple reason that, actually I shouldn't say that, because there's different kinds of natural gas capacity. Some of it has got a capacity factor that is extremely low.
Well, the wind doesn't always blow, so.
That's right. These natural gas plants, there's different kinds. The big natural gas plants are baseload power plants. Some of the smaller ones, peaking plants, might have a capacity factor at below 10%, believe it or not.
And they're very expensive to operate.
They're really expensive to operate. part of the problem is that they're basically jet engines.
Yep, that's what they are.
Have you ever thought of what would happen if one of those things broke loose and just went through the side of the building it was?
Probably knock a few people over on the way.
It would. You know, I knew a guy who was a repairman for some company, and he was called to a laundry because a centrifuge at the laundry, which is basically a washing machine for doing laundry.
A spinner.
Spinner. It had broken loose.
Oh boy.
And these spinners, the spinner for this laundry was something like 6 or 8 feet across. And
Bouncing all over the place.
yeah, and unfortunately, both the main switch and the breaker box for that particular unit were behind it.
Oh wow.
So you had to get past it to get to the...
Shut it off.
Yeah, and of course, the proper thing to do under those circumstances would be to get to the breaker box of the building or some subunit and shut it off remotely. But it had started to wander across the floor, and it had actually broken through a cinder block wall.
Wow.
So, you know, why am I telling you this story? I don't know. I just don't know. But, you know.
Well, this is the end, and it's been such a good one, we don't want to give it up.
Okay, that's what it is. Absolutely. Yeah, we've had some good stories today. There've been a couple of things that have not been good. But, you know, this thing about Drax, the installed capacity for wind being increasing, there is no capacity left for coal in the UK. It's all shut down. And the amount of natural gas capacity is declining. So, you know.
Well, there never was much natural gas capacity in England anyhow.
They had natural gas coming from the North Sea.
Yeah, they did, right.
But much of their gas was coming from Russia, and that got cut off. So natural gas in the UK has been falling off because of the war in the Ukraine. So anyway, there it is. So our last slide here is hoping that people have a tolerably flawless week. I like that term, tolerably flawless.
Tolerably flawless, huh?
So I'm going to wave goodbye to everybody. Tom,
and I'm waving goodbye, but my cat's not here.
The cat is not there. Why don't you bring the cat in to wave goodbye? I don't know. Well, of course, people wouldn't see it one way or the other. So what do you have to say about coming all back next time, Tom?
Hey, what?
About coming all, and people coming, you all come back next time.
Oh, yeah, you all come back now, you hear? I must say that right. You all come back and see us sometime, you hear?
There you go. There it is. Have a lovely week, everybody. A tolerably flawless week, okay?
Tolerably flawless, at the very least.